Hello, hello. This is Irene with SaugaTalks. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. Please don't forget to follow SaugaTalks, okay? On LinkedIn, on Twitter, on YouTube. Today's amazing topic and fabulous guests. The amount of technology wisdom I have here in my virtual room today is amazing. We're going to be talking about consumer gadgets. We're going to be talking the biggest technology events on earth. They kind of passed last month, but guess what? Those huge happenings setting pace for the entire 2023, which again seems like everybody back to life, everybody excited, everybody producing and innovating. So we're here to kind of gather our thoughts, our observations on highlights, trends, and just interesting stuff that's about to happen to all of us in 2023. So Tony Moroney is here. Hello, Tony. How are you?
Hi, Irene. How are you?
Lovely. Nicolas Babin with us. Nicolas, how are you?
Hi, Irene. I'm good.
Lovely. Marcell Vollmer joining from Germany. Marcell, how are you? Thank you for joining.
Awesome, Irene. Great being here together with this entire group. Amazing.
You are big influencers, okay, in the world of tech, in the world of innovation, in the world of digital transformation, you name it. I'm big fan of all three of you, okay, I follow you. We are formed this digital friendship, but that's for the reason. And this year we can expect so much more. So Tony, why don't you share some of the highlights that draw your attention? CES seemed to be a long time ago, but guess what? We will feel it, we will see it throughout the year. So what are your favorites?
Well, I think for me, the overall team in terms of just, connectiveness. So everything is being connected to everything else. And I think what CES for me was bringing out was actually just how far that has come. And, things that, we talked about in the past, we're now starting to see how all of these things are coming together. And the world that we're going to be in is going to be just so connected, so rich in terms of information and insights, and our lives will be totally different. And we will get into some of the stuff, but it's just mind-blowing how connected we now are.
Fantastic. Look at us here. So Nicolas, you are big on Metaverse, on digital transformation, on adapting the new data practices and businesses. So what drew your mind in CES this year? Mm-hmm.
Well, the number one is the fact that CES is back. We had, because of COVID, for about 2-3 years of like last year, only 50,000 people, the year before even nothing, and the year before it was closed. And this year, at least 140,000 people came. It's not yet pre-COVID level because we had 180,000 last 2019, if I remember correctly. So that was the first point. But then, as Tony said, everything is so connected. So when you talk about Metaverse, obviously, it's one of my subjects, as you mentioned. But, AI being very close to Metaverse as well, augmented reality, virtual reality, all these different worlds, and many other subjects. But I'll talk about it after we all have a chance to talk.
Absolutely, Marcell. What are your favorites? What kind of you think will take us forward this year? Yeah.
So I think definitely ChatGPT. That's what I see as a hot topic right now. And I've been by myself absolutely amazed by testing it out and really getting answers. So that's for me the next level of artificial intelligence, machine learning. We need to be realistic. There's always the Gartner hype cycle. I think we all know what I'm talking about, that there's one term out, one buzzword, and then everyone is jumping on it and saying, yeah, wow, it's amazing what it can do. We totally overestimated on a short run. Probably underestimated in the long run. And we will see how transformative it really will be. Using ChatGPT definitely is the next level experience I've done by myself on machine learning, on algorithms. And I look forward seeing here the next level of technology, disruptive technologies. I think that's definitely fair to say that this is disruptive.
And look, I think Marcell's right. I mean, there was a session at the World Economic Forum in Davos there, and it was, how do you equip 1 billion people for the digital economy? Mm-hmm. And I think Marcell's right. They did ask the question, who has tried ChatGPT? So these technologies are just moving so fast. I mean, the idea of creativity, the idea of business models, they're all up for grabs. And as a business, you could create content. You could then give that to another app, create visuals, create videos, create background music. It's just quite astonishing how quickly this whole thing is moving.
That's one thing also that the WEF is working on, is a digital divide or the digital gap. Because you're right, all these technologies coming together, but the problem is, we're not equal to access to digital tools like these ones. And ChatGPT is a great example because, it's opening up new frontiers that we've never seen before. And the main thing is, and that's why I like the Davos approach, is the fact that, yes, okay, we have all these innovations, we have all these technologies, but also we need to work on ensuring that everybody can access those. And that's one of the points that I had from Davos.
Yeah, and I think, Nicolas, the metaverse is an interesting one in that, because at the moment, a lot of the emphasis is on the hardware, which can actually, exacerbate the digital divide.
No, absolutely. But there's one thing that really has caught my attention at CES was the mobility angle. Whether you can find it, in the with sustainability, around sustainability, with new type of planes, new type of tractors, new type of automobiles. But as the three of you know, I had over 20 years at Sony, and the fact that Sony is coming up with a car with Honda really got my attention. I know it was announced last year, but this year we could see it, we could touch it. It was something unbelievable, and I'm really glad to see that at least now, with IoT, coming to fruition, with 5G, and with Sony involved in so many different technologies. If you ask me what, my favorite one, and again, I'm very biased on this one, but the Sony booth was really something that caught my attention at CES. And the mobility angle was fantastic because, again, as we said at the beginning, everything is coming together to ensure we have autonomous vehicles, we have electric vehicles, we have all these new different type of mobility, and also some drones where you can have like flying taxis. That was a lot of fun, I felt.
I was about to bring it up, yeah. So Marcell, what do you think about flying cars? Or maybe pedaling to charge your laptop, all these kind of cool things, anything resonates with you?
First of all, I love it. And flying cars, this would be really amazing. I don't really wanna now provide an outlook. What would it mean if we have an uncontrolled number of autonomous vehicles up in the air flying around, by seeing what the chaos is, what we have on Earth, what the traffic jam is? I lived 3 years in Atlanta, Georgia, and I can tell you that's really next level of traffic jam. Let's now think about, unfortunately, the space is endless, as we know. The air on the planet, not so much, and therefore I really hope that we will use it in the future. But I'm absolutely impressed about autonomous vehicles. It is not so autonomous than it sounds from the taxonomy, because we are still at level 3 right now. This means we as humans need to interact or be ready to interact at any moment in time. I really hope, and in particular when it comes to flying cars or flying vehicles, which includes drones for me as well, then we better have the right technology available, supported by AI, machine learning, that these vehicles up in the air are not crashing, because this would be a nightmare. And of course, we all wanna stay safe. This means for the people on the ground, they have houses, they have flats where they live, as well as also for the people in the air. So probably here, the autonomous can help us a little bit by having really the right systems in place. And Tony mentioned the connected, so the connectivity in general for the mobility. I think this might be definitely the next level what we see, and amazing. The fifth element becomes reality, the movie. Some older ones might remember that, where Bruce Willis was also using a taxi or driving a taxi with a flying car. It was not autonomous, by the way, at this point in time. So we are really here talking about the next level. I can't wait to see it in the future, that more and more drones will become reality. And also now benefiting from the electrical capabilities, what we have with the batteries we can use to really also have impact on sustainability, because that's what we need. We only have one planet. I believe it's only one, and there's not so much what we can extend. So therefore, we better look also on the CO2 emissions, what we create when we travel.
You felt this year that, you feel like the technology is there, and you feel like it's bubbling. It's maybe not boiling yet, but it's really at the stage. And maybe next year, we just, the tipping point that's what we're waiting for. And I felt like with everybody there and the energy there and the products we could see, and again, coming together, the sustainability, the mobility, all these technologies, I felt like we're at the brink of something is going to be big. And one point that I wanted to mention is that what Marcell just mentioned is about the energy and the energy management, which is essential. I mean, again, I'm totally in phase with Marcell on this one. Is again, we have only one planet, SDG 17 goals, really important. That very. I know we have goals and we know when we should reach them, but frankly, the sooner the better, as far as I'm concerned. And tech for good is really part of it. And that's what we saw at CES, is that all these, creative minds, all these startups, all these are putting the technology to help our planet get better. We haven't been listening to our planet for many, many years. And I think now you really feel like the energy is coming together to make it, it's a play on words, because the energy is coming together to make the energy more efficient and more sustainable. That's how I felt.
Absolutely. Tony, to you, okay, with Metaverse focus, digital transformation focus, what about laptops, glass-free in 3D? How realistic this is? Because this will be huge leap forward, I think, right, from these heavy, expensive glasses that everyone has to wear now.
Yeah, look, I think the when we talk about Metaverse, people immediately think of big headsets. I think there's something like 60 patents in the last few months of different type of visual things we will be. So it could be as simple as this, and it's a question of where do we get to? And I think what's really critical, and Nicolas touched on this earlier in terms of digital divide, it needs to be accessible to the masses, because that becomes the tipping point in terms of when the metaverse actually can become something that's meaningful for most people. So I think there's so much innovation going on here, and I think there's a lot of confusion in terms of it's about big goggles. No, it's not about big goggles. And you go ask the 3.1 billion gamers, they've been living in metaverse world in 2D for the last number of years. So it's how do we actually make it so accessible to everyone, so that people start to understand and experience the metaverse. And one thing that was great, I thought, was to see all these pictures of people we know with the goggles on or glasses on, whatever, testing things and actually experiencing what is this about.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could also see people playing against robots, ping pong. You had all these robots around. And so it's, robots have been around for a long time. I mean, I remember the first time with Sony in 1999, we went to CES and announced Aibo. It was the first AI-based robot, not as advanced as we see now, but it was back in 1999. And, and at the time, people were like, wow, this is unbelievable. This is the future. And back in January in Vegas, you could see people having robots around them, and it was pretty much almost natural. And that's what I mean. It was actually quite interesting. And to make the parallel with also what we saw at Davos, is I felt like with CES this year, we had the goal of an approach, a global approach to to sustainability, economic and health related challenges. That was one thing that I felt, because if I look at the an overall takeaway from CES, we had, for me at least, one takeaway was about mobility, another takeaway was about sustainability. Even around mobility, as I mentioned before, but there's one big takeaway also, which was around healthy living. I don't know if you felt that, Tony and Marcell, but I felt like we talked a lot. I mean, I saw a lot of booths regarding mental and physical well-being. And so you could see a lot of startups thinking, okay, this tech, again, as Marcell mentioned, is going to be great for the planet, but it's also really good. It's going to be really good for people like you and I who have been traveling a lot, have been working a lot, and mental health is becoming something big. And this is where Davos and CES this year, at least, I felt were exactly on the same page.
Brilliant point, Nicolas. Just to weigh in here, we are all the time discussing the future of work, and now we all know the old way in working, going to offices, the smaller offices with different desks. Now we have experienced the last more than 2 years COVID, working from home, the remote work, and also being on Zoom calls day and night. The Zoom fatigue is, for a good reason, a defined term which is out now. What we haven't done so far is that we really have to find how do we want to work in the future. So I'm only talking about white collar jobs, of course.
Yeah.
But basically connecting now, using the metaverse, virtual reality, augmented reality, I think this is really something where we need to be very meaningful about how do we want to live and work. And by the way, we all know, and gaming industry was already mentioned, a lot of innovation starts with gamings, and this is something I definitely look forward if for the next generations, but also our generations, we are not so old that we are ready to retire. So we need really to see how can we benefit and how can we find a way that we really feel as human beings on with all the empathy, what we have, the emotions, how can we feel comfortable in that way that we don't have burned out people or people basically just feeling they are used and sitting in front of a laptop doing some work, but really also collaborating, thinking about innovations, brainstorming, things like that, that we have a different way in really benefiting from the technology. I think this is not defined, and for me, the future of work is now at a kind of inflection point where we will see how we can really leverage the technology and transition into the next level now, how we live and work in the future. Probably the metaverse is one. I'm absolutely convinced metaverse will be a big game changer here. But we are also far away from that really a mass of people is using it, and that we really connect. $3,000 now, what is out as a price for the goggles, and still the big ones, how long do you want to wear them? I did test them, different ones. Wow, that's probably not the way I like to work, 10, 12, even sometimes longer hours. So there's still some stuff what we need to change that we really feel comfortable in working here.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things that they talked about in Davos was that, yes, we need to, embrace all the technology, but actually a lot of the reskilling is around soft skills. And they talked about things like, collaborative problem solving.
Yeah.
And, funny enough, when you look at some of these games, the Robloxes and things like that, these 13-year-olds are playing, they're actually learning those type of skills. Yeah. And the question is, how do we actually embrace that as organizations so that we can bring that sort of collaboration into the way we look at problems in the world and how we solve problems for customers? So I think it's going to be fascinating, because the technology, yes, but it's actually how we embrace and work together and enable that creativity and collaboration that's going to be key.
Yeah, and going back to Marcell's point in terms of future of work and hybrid work, we have to remember that, at least Tony and I have been involved for many years in terms of digital transformation. And, we've been telling people for many years, we need to be disruptive. We need to change our mindset. We need to start thinking about, outside of the box in terms of future of work. And it's true that people mental health was suffering, with burnout and things like that. And suddenly you had COVID. So we have to think that 2020, COVID came, and today, it was January 2023, and already in less than 2 years, because I think COVID, the first confinement was like around March, if I remember correctly. So in less than 2 years, the technology and the mindsets have evolved in more than, I've been involved in business for almost over 35 years, actually. And what I've seen in 30 years, suddenly in 2 years, it has exploded. So what I'm trying to say here is like, we have to feel great about what we saw at Davos and at CES, because innovation has enabled us to come so much further than we have ever done in the last 30 years in just 2 years. Thinking about it, 2 years is nothing, right? And so now it's part of our, and when I talk to my customers about digital transformation, it's part of their DNA almost now. They're like, oh yeah, put us together a plan about transforming our company. I say, well, okay, it'll be done tomorrow. Is always my joke. But at least now you don't have to fight. I don't know, Tony, how you feel about that, because I know you've been involved as long as I have in terms of digital transformation. But we used to fight a lot for people to understand. I mean, fight in a good term, for people to understand why they needed to transform. And now it's not an issue anymore.
Yeah, I think it's improved. I think the big thing for business leaders is to feel comfortable. Actually, this is not about the technology. This is around our customers, around our business, about our business model, and for them to be able to make sense of what's happening around them, and then to be able to give that sense to the organization that this is something that is good, that can be embraced, that can improve the organization, can improve what they do for customers, what can improve the lives of their employees as well, because quite often digital transformation is seen as shorthand for right sizing or downsizing or whatever term you want to use. So if it's a case that we can sort of say, well, actually, our world is changing, our customers are changing, their needs are changing. Let's talk about how our business needs to change and how we could get there. That's a great conversation to have that, your people will embrace.
Yeah.
Yep, Marcell, back to you. With technology boosting productivity, you mentioned future of work, but let's not forget, right? We have to produce more, right? We have to cut costs nowadays, right? And at the same time, innovation is not waiting. So what's your experience out there, kind of, feeling and understanding the future of work mixed with higher productivity?
So I definitely agree that we need also to improve the productivity. Overall, on the other side, I also want to be a little bit careful by overusing the term what will come with robots, artificial intelligence, and all of that. That's what I also learned in Davos, as well as the World Economic Forum, where we have seen some studies out there. There will be millions of jobs impacted by the technology as we see them evolving day by day. On the other side, the good thing is also that we have a entirely newly created ecosystem on additional jobs which didn't exist in the past. So from drone programming, data architects, data scientists, ChatGPT, also integrating chatbots. Tony mentioned a few times the customer side. So customer experience is key, using the data and working with the data for the better for the customers, because we all want to be successful. And as a business, you need to be successful by serving your customers. If you lose your customers, you lose your revenues. And by that, you definitely have a big question mark on your business model. On the other side, I think we also need to see how we can ensure that we only do meaningful things and let robots or automation do the less important stuff, or basically manual repetitive tasks, which machines simply can do better. My favorite example, as I was a chief procurement officer at SAP 10 years back, or even a little bit longer, it's now 12 years back exactly, that I learned a lot about why do we still have people in front of a laptop sitting there, and on one screen they see a document, on another screen they see an ERP document, and basically they need to do manual typing work. This is something what definitely machines should do, because the people are needed. And productivity also means not only that we do more with less, it is also that we focus on the value creating, value adding activities, and basically try to get rid of what anyhow most humans don't like to do, these repetitive tasks. And this is really where we need to think about the future of work, and of course focusing on the capabilities what we have by technology. On the other side, also ensuring that we define the new roles for the people in a meaningful way, that we really can bring both together. I use the term bionic. I like it. On the one side, the technology, and on the other side, we as humans, to bring this together. Nothing else is meant with bionic. So basically, it's a digital transformation by really integrating technology in the daily work, with people. And this is where I see the future and how the future of work will look like, but still not defined to which extent we will use which technology, what the impact is, and also how can we ensure that we do the change management, because we definitely should not forget the people side of the equation, that the people need to get trained, they need to be leadership to really focusing also in getting the right talents for the jobs and also helping them to upgrade, to focus on the more value-adding activities. And therefore, we as leaders are needed also to make the transformation happening and running this in the best way for the people by using whatever we get access to increase the productivity here and also to stay in business with our existing business model or adapt the business model. So in getting the right talents for the jobs and also helping them to upgrade, to focus on the more value-adding activities. And therefore, we as leaders are needed also to make the transformation happening and running this in the best way for the people by using whatever we get access to increase the productivity here and also to stay in business with our existing business model or adapt the business model if needed.
Yeah. And this is what we call human augmented. You call it Bionic, I call it human augmented. And the good news is back in 1996, when I first started with Sony and starting to work on robots and AI, that was our goal. We thought, we need to have, so obviously it was for the Japanese culture because people were getting older, they didn't have kids that could take care of them. And so we thought, we're going to make a robot which is going to entertain them back in 1999. And, when we launched it, we didn't have the technology. The internet was like really at the start of everything, but that was our goal. I remember very vividly Dr. Doi, who's the guy who invented IBO, saying, I want humans to be augmented. So putting human at the heart, exactly as you said, Marcell. And what I felt today, last month at the CES, was the fact that at least with all the startups, they really had humans in mind. Tony mentioned CX, customer experience. Customers were really at the heart of all the technologies that came out. And also, when you looked at products, they were less complicated to understand. So, or maybe it's because I'm getting older, and so I feel like with all the experience, maybe it's easier. But when I first had, I think it was for PlayStation 4 or 3, I can't remember, but I first had my goggles, with VR. It was extremely complicated to make it work. At CES, you just put your goggles on, and you're in a different world. All right? We have gone really a long way to make it now easier for customers and to make humans at the heart of everything. And this is why I believe something major is going to happen and that tech is really going for good because we're not forgetting about humans. And Marcell is 100% right. I mean, my mind is the fact that if we don't forget about humans, we're going to succeed. Technology is not here to replace humans. It's here to help humans and to augment humans.
And by the way, Nicolas, just to add, we can prove this. When I was born 1970, so now everyone knows how old I am.
He's only young fella.
But look at the technology, what we had. Thanks, guys. But the technology we had was television got color, number one. The phone we had was used, and this was for millennials or Generation Z. Exactly, the rotary phones. What we had, by the way, this was one number for younger people now not understanding what we are talking about. And of course, we had radio. But look at the number of people we were on Earth. It was 3.4 billion at the time I was born. Now we know last year we had we have more than 8 billion people on Earth. So basically, we more than doubled. And look at the technology what we have access to. And only the buzzwords what we used here, and there was no blockchain, IoT, 5G, and all the things what we could now probably talk for hours here. This all is available right now, and we have the lowest unemployment rate on Earth. I will not say that the world is perfect. It's by far not. And I'm here in Germany, not far away. There is a war, Russia against the Ukraine. There's an increase in energy costs, and so on. I think we all can agree we are not living in a perfect world, and there is a lot what we need to do. But on the other side, I also want to underline the importance of technology and how technology has helped us to get there, where we are right now, and also leveraging the capabilities what we have. Just to building on that, Nicolas, because I think it's very important, because people always think, oh yeah, a robot will steal my work, or some artificial intelligence. And now it's also the discussion about, just because I'm getting really emotional about this topic, ChatGPT, and there was a list the next day in the internet. These are the jobs, including lawyers and all
teachers,
kinds of white collar works. But look also what this really does. This is uncertainty which gets created just by some media releases or putting some information out. The same was happening with autonomous trucks. When Elon Musk was on stage, I remember very well, it was an amazing show, and the first semi-truck was presented. The big show, and by the way, the fun fact was the Roadster, the new convertible, was also in it. But the next day, 10,000, 100,000 of jobs in the United States were putting on the line that basically these truck drivers might have no longer a job. The total number globally of autonomous or electric trucks at this point in time was 2. And look now where we are. We have a shortage in truck drivers right now. The same here, by the way, in Europe. Yeah. There's nothing better here on the European side, and this is really also where we need to balance a little bit. And this is why I warn also from the hype and using here the hype cycle as a terminology, that basically the augmented technology, all the disruptive technologies what we have access to, it is not changing the world from one day to another, but the process and the journey what we start, and we are part of the journey. And as leaders, we need also to define rules, give guidance, provide a vision, but also take out the fear of the people by just seeing the negative side.
The way you take out the fears, that's how I spend my days, is actually explaining that history repeats itself. Just look back 1800s when they invented the first car. They must have been so scared, because how did they do mobility at the time? You had a horse, right? So you had people taking care of the horse. You had people feeding the horse. You had people taking the horse for the night. And suddenly all these jobs disappeared because you had a car, right? But new jobs were invented. You had the mechanics. You had the tire manufacturers who became. You had radio. You had entertainment in the car. You had all these things so. Where will we be today if our grandparents had said no to the phone or electricity, right? And the phone and electricity were a huge change as well, because with electricity, suddenly you had the light, so you didn't have the business of candles anymore. Right?
Disrupted the whole industry, right? Disrupted so many jobs, right? Yeah.
And I hear people saying, and I understand their fears and everything. Marcell, we're on a journey and we can't go back. So let's make the best out of that journey.
Yeah, and I think our young people are the key to this, because we don't necessarily understand the tools and technologies that they're using day in, day out, and we as business leaders need to create that environment where that can come up to the top and help us shape the future of our business and our business offerings and what we will do for our customers, because our customers in the future, they're going to require these type of experiences, and if we don't understand them, but our young people do, well, isn't the onus on us to figure out how we tap into that and help them to help us to move this whole thing forward?
Absolutely. Let's talk about Generation Alpha, okay? They don't understand half of what we're talking about, okay? Millennials, we kind of can talk to them. Alpha, forget it. So with that, I don't think ChatGPT is taking up the world. I don't, okay? A great example of the electricity, great example. It's going to help us. It's going to be another tool. If students will be, if teachers and instructors and professors at university, if they will be looking at their students based on their quality of their work created by ChatGPT, we should be intelligent enough to kind of know the distinction. All right. So it's still back to us. There is no technology that taking responsibility for good professor to see good essay from repetitive artificial essay they can grab. Okay. I remember all these worries about Wikipedia. Do you remember? How all these students will start learning from Wikipedia only. Guess what? We are in a better place now because of it.
Yep, absolutely. No, absolutely. And that's why. And again, going back to the original subject, which was CES and Davos, this is how everything we've been saying, at least I feel Tony, Marcell, and I, is exactly that. We're on a journey, and CES and Davos are helping us to go onto that journey, because everything we say and the fears people can have, and the ethics we need to put around AI and ChatGPT and the metaverse and everything, people are thinking about it as well. And the sustainability, all the important humanity questions are not forgotten. I feel more optimistic after those two events, and I'm hoping you guys share the same thing.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I think what was really great, actually, apart from in Davos, they actually really nailed the colors to the mast in terms of digital transformation is central to everything, economic growth, inclusion, equality, everything. But they also really called it out. It's actually key to ESG as well. And we need to look at how we, as you rightly said, Nicolas, how we're grabbing this technology and helping us to help the planet and help the environment and help everything that we're doing.
Yeah, so the Irish and the French agree just before the start of Six Nations. So it's going to be a fantastic tournament.
Absolutely.
As chairman, I can join Nicolas and Tony, so definitely. And I mean, we can also add another country and nationality here by that. So I couldn't agree more. No, Davos and CES were really showing also what is important. I also want to highlight a little bit that basically the topics are not really entirely new. It is more that we are now focusing a little bit more. And I think this is exactly what needs to be done. We need to focus on the technology side. We need to focus on the customer, on the value adding activities, the productivity, Irene, what you said. On Davos World Economic Forum, I think sustainability is definitely something we need to take serious. Look at the outside temperature. Look also at the climate change. I know there are still people out saying that climate change is not happening. We definitely see an increase in the temperature, and by that an effect what we see with less glaciers, with an increase in the sea level, the air pollution and all that. And I think we simply need to find a way in how to best now focus on the right investments, as well as also on using the right technologies to really help here to improve and go for the targets. Only if we define a target, look at I want to have a man on the moon and really want to make the mission happen. We all see what this can release and how fast it's possible. Think about a country like Germany, and I can tell you here, bureaucracy, this is something what Germans really take serious. An LPG terminal got built in months. Think about that. To go for a new wind energy park, you have 8 years only for the approval process to go through. Now an LPG terminal could be built within months. It is possible when you focus and when you really define the right priorities. I will not say that LPG is the future, but basically I want to say we need also to change in the way how we are getting slowed down by certain processes and rethink the way how we interact, and also how the government needs to support us to really make the change happening.
Yep, you mentioned digital transformation taking off, right? When we realized that in COVID times we cannot work the old way, right? So nowadays we're seeing more and more proof. Marcell, thank you for bringing that example. You know, we were thinking Germany is so dependent on that energy sources that it's impossible to get away. Guess what, right? Human ingenuity, and really when we focus Exactly, exactly. You know what? We can go on and on, gentlemen. This is absolutely fantastic times we live in, okay? And we all have takes on technology, and we just amazed, I think. Summarize with the group, we just amazed what's ahead, okay? How about few takeaways, maybe? Tony, your observations, things that you think matter this year?
Well, for me, it's around digital transformation, it's around inclusion, it's around sustainability, and all three go hand in hand.
Beautiful. Nicolas, for the audience, takeaway. Yeah.
There was a product that really impressed me. Was the world only leadless pacemaker that also gives you a unique mapping capability to understand where to put the pacemaker and to access correct positioning. I felt that HealthTech was really something extremely big, whether it's for mental health, whether it's for, as I mentioned, this new type of pacemaker. And so, I've discussed all the different angles that I've talked about, mobility and sustainability and all this. Yes, definitely. But just putting the light on one product, it was the fact that around HealthTech and the projects, that have taken over and that now are really booming. That's one thing that I was the most impressed with.
Noted. Thank you, Nicolas. Marcell, what are your favorites? I mean, few takeaways that we want to highlight.
Awesome. I couldn't agree more on what Tony and Nicolas said, and of course, I could reiterate now the Bionic, the Augmented side on the technology. But let me turn it around, and I would more highlight on that we need to change something. And my personal motto is carpe diem. Basically, use the day in the best way that you really can do something. Let's get started and really let's drive change and let's drive impact. That's what I believe. What is key by bringing all the different elements together.
Absolutely, that's what we're here for. I encourage everyone in the audience, follow right now Tony, Nicolas, Marcell on Twitter, on LinkedIn. There are tons of very interesting facts, fun demos, okay? Just kind of thoughts of the day. Everything you want to know, you need to know about technology is right among this community. So follow these fine minds of technology today. And gentlemen, thank you so very much today. I had a fabulous time. We're gonna spread this knowledge outside in the world today. Thank you.
You're welcome, Irene. Thanks for having us. So it's really great pleasure. And thanks,
That's
Tony
fun.
and Nicolas. Great social media support, and having your friendship out there definitely means a lot and is really impacting also lots on social media. Thank you very much.
Same here, Marcell. Thank you, Tony, and good luck, Tony.
Oh yes, allez le bleu.